Well, here we are again. We keep getting closer and closer to the end of the semester, leading up to our big project, which is your face casting, which is going to be the most difficult thing that you've done. And I can't encourage you enough to read through all of the directions that are in this section that I included in your package on prosthetics. Goes through step by step, goes through the materials you're going to need, and each step of the process, which are basically three steps. You're going to do the first step is going to be doing your casting, your life casting of your face. The second step is going to be taking that and making a mold out of that. And the third step is going to be building a prosthetic after you've done that on your life mask. That gives you something that'll completely fit your face. It's made for you. And then on that, then you'll be using what you cast, and we'll go through that process step by step. Is you will be using that as part of your final project as a 3D feature that you're going to tie into your makeup. So that's kind of the importance of what's going to be going on here. Thought I'd go first of all. I'm going to put the materials here in my lap that you got in your case that I put together for you when we had to leave classroom and go online. I've tried to get in here all the basics you're going to need. You're probably going to need to add a few things on your own. The first element you're going to need a couple of sizable empty bowls or containers that you're not too concerned with. Most stuff will come out. Plaster, the UltraCal 30, that can kind of ruin the containers. You'll find that the alginate, which we're going to use first, will just peel right out. It just rubberizes and peels out. So that's not going to be a problem. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have a chair, hopefully a chair that reclines. You're going to want to have one or two people to help you, and you might contact each other online if you need a partner to help you do this. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a comfortable chair. You're going to mask off at your neck with some kind of a garbage bag that you can put over your head, any kind of a material that you aren't concerned with the fact that it might get stained or might get worn out. So I would suggest under that having an old t-shirt, because sometimes no matter how tight you get the seal around the neck, it'll leak down and get on your clothes. So you're going to want to lean back in a chair. You're going to want to mask off here. You're going to want to mask off your head. Number of ways to do that. You can use a shower cap and get it back. So you want to get it at the hairline, so you bring it down this way. Another thing that works well is you can take saran wrap and wrap that upper part of your head. And that saran wrap's good because it'll stick tightly to itself. You're going to want to cover up as much of the hair as possible, because getting the stuff out of your hair, as far as either the UltraCal 30 or the alginate, is going to be a bit of a problem, and it's going to pull and tug at your hair, and you're going to lose a little bit of hair pulling it out. So try to keep yourself as covered as well as you can. So when you've got your hair covered, you've got your neck covered, you're ready to go, you're in a chair that's going to recline, you're going to take Vaseline or any kind of a petroleum jelly or something that's got an oil base to it. You're going to want to cover your entire face with petroleum jelly. And that's to keep the UltraCal 30 from sticking to your face. It doesn't tend to want to stick very much anyhow. So this is a precaution. Don't get it on so heavy that it's gloppy, because then what will happen is the UltraCal 30 will want to slide off of that. So you're going to do your whole face, around your eyes, everywhere with UltraCal 30. With the petroleum jelly. So now you're basically set and you're ready to go. This is outlined step by step in the handout that I gave you, and also you'll see it in the video. Some of the video approaches are a little different in how they do it, and that's one of those things we've talked about with makeup. Is it is an art form. People find what works for them the best, and that's how they go about doing it after that point. So we've got you all set up now. You're in your chair, you're reclined, and the first thing that you're going to use is going to be alginate. And alginate is in your container, and I've written on it. So it says alginate. It's kind of a off-white, kind of a pale, flesh-colored material, very powdery. What you're going to do with this is you're going to take it. You have to remember, this has about a 5-minute set time. That means that's before it starts setting up to the point that you can't use it anymore. Because what it turns to is it turns to rubber. Alginate is what your dentist uses to make impressions with, and so it's very comfortable to put on your face. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this, and you're going to have yours. You're not able to do this, of course, because you're the one who's under. You're going to have your assistant or the person who's actually doing the makeup for you. It's going to take this. Probably start off with 2 or 3 cups. Have some. This will set faster if you use hot water or warm water. You don't want to use real hot water no matter what. But you want to use, if you use warm water, you have to remember it's going to set a little faster than if you use cold water. But you have about 5 minutes to work with it once you start. So you're going to take it, you're going to put it into a container with, and then you're going to mix water into it, and you're going to mix it. And sometimes a beater or something like that will help, or a slotted spoon will really help mix that up without getting too much lumps in it. As soon as it's to a position, and it shouldn't take very long, you don't want it too watery, but you want it pourable. So take a look when you look at the video, kind of look at the consistency they've got there. So it's kind of, when it pours, it should have some shape and some form to it. Then you're going to take the alginate, you're going to completely cover the face with the alginate. And you're pouring it on, person is pouring it on, working it, making sure that it's getting into all the crevices, being especially careful. Now you're under, you can't talk. All right, so you can't be talking. You got to come up with some hand signs or something to communicate with the other person if you need to. And the key thing here is you want to cover the entire face all the way down past the chin line, so you should get it down under the neck and let it, it'll run down. But you want it pourable, and you want to get it on, like I say, fairly quickly, because you don't want it to set too soon and waste all of that good alginate. So once the alginate is on, completely covered, as soon as it's dry to the touch, you can touch it and feel that it's not wet and rubbery anymore. The next step, and you can speed, usually you don't need to speed this part of the process up, because it's, like I say, it's got about a 5 minutes to 7 minutes set time. So once you've got the alginate on, the next thing that you're going to do, so I pointed out the alginate, is you've got in your kit a roll of plaster bandage. And that's just that they make casts out of. And the plaster bandage, I want you to take, you're going to cut it into strips that are approximately 6 inches long, and you're going to layer over the top. You're creating now, you've got this rubberized mask on your face, and what you want to do is you're building basically a shell to support that. So you're taking the plaster bandage, cut into 6-inch strips, and cut some into 1.5 or so inch strips, because you're going to use those some of the places over the nose where we need to be careful. And that's the key, is you need to be careful that the person can breathe, that you're not getting the alginate in their nose. So you might want to keep around handy, the person that's doing it, a couple of Q-tips. So as you're pouring the alginate and you're making sure that you're getting it into all the crevices, and that you are very still, so you're not, because if you start moving around while that alginate is setting, it won't set into the crevices it needs to. But if it gets into the nose, then you can take a Q-tip and clear out that area around the nose, because you want the person to be able to breathe. So basically you're building up 3 layers of the plaster bandage. And you can go this way, it doesn't make any difference how you overlap them. You're going to bring it all the way down into the neck. And so you have at least 3 layers. The last layers you'll probably want to do are going to be the nose area. So you want to take it across the nose here as part of your covering the face, making sure that you're pressing it into the crevices on the face over the alginate. And then as you do that, You, like I say, make sure you should clean out the nose, then take some strips, smaller strips, run it down the nose this way, over the edge of the nose, down onto the upper lip. By the way, if you have grown a beard, since you've seen me are starting to, um, those are areas, if you're doing that, you're going to want to really make sure you got a heavy amount of the Vaseline on that, because hair is where it's going to want to stick. Same thing on the eyebrows. You're going to want to make sure you got the eyebrows matted down well with the petroleum jelly. So we've got that. Then we're going to strengthen that area around the nose. We're going to run a strip over the nose this way. We can run a couple strips this way. Fill in any areas around the edge where we need to build that up. Because what we're doing is we're making a shell. The shell, when we've got the bandage on it, is going to be solid and it's going to dry. Now, the plaster bandage is self-heating. It's got chemicals in it that help it dry quickly. But you're probably going to want to speed the process up by using a hair dryer, just because you want to be under there as long as possible. This whole process from beginning to end of getting it back off your face should be about 35 or 45 minutes. About 35 minutes. And because you don't want to be under there any longer than possible. So I say come up with some hand signals. You can also have a notepad where you can scroll some things on it if you have to communicate with the person that's doing it. So you've got your face now completely covered with alginate and with plaster bandage to build up the shell. Soon as that is dry, so you want to go out to the side here. You want this complete area back to your ears covered. And then what's going to happen as soon as this is dry, the plaster bandage. Now, I usually make up a thin layer of the UltraCal 30, which is the whiter stuff, and it's basically like a cement, a combination of a little bit of cement and plaster of Paris. So it's stronger than plaster of Paris, and that's why we use it, because you want it to chip up. So I usually take, when I've done the plaster bandage over the top, mix up a layer that can of the UltraCal 30 that's pretty thin, that you can like paint on with a brush or put it on and move it around with your fingers, and just to give some extra strength to this cup that you're making here. So you got that on, and as soon as it's dry, and like I say, speeding up the process with a hair dryer, you're going to want to bend forward and wiggle your face as much as possible, having your person that's doing it clear around the edges of the alginate and the mask where they're meeting the face, so you don't pull the inside of the alginate shell out of the mold. And then when you pull it out, you will have an empty mold of the face. And I don't keep these because they dry out and they don't show you anything. But what you're going to have is you're going to have that plaster mold here and the alginate in the inside of it that's formed to your face. So the next thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to take and clean out any little imperfections that might be inside there. Let's say that there's just a little piece where the alginate came to use, or a little piece in there. You're going to want to clean those kinds of things out and make sure that it's smooth on the inside. Then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take some clay and you're going to fill the outside. You have the outside shell with your nose holes that we created from the outside. You're going to want to plug those up with some clay or some of your nose putty. And so when we pour the liquid in to the bowl that we've created, it's not going to run out the nose holes. So we've got that all set up. We're ready to go. And then you're going to start pouring, mixing the UltraCal 30 into pourable layers. First of all, you want to take a thin layer of the UltraCal 30, and you're going to want to maybe paint the inside of the mask with some kind of a brush that's not heavy bristled, and just paint it in there. Make sure that you're getting into all the cracks on the inside of the mold now, and you'll see this all pretty clear in the other directions you're going to be getting. And then when that's done, you're going to start pouring in layers. And mainly you don't want to try to pour it all at once because it's a lot of weight. And second of all, it won't dry as fast. So if you pour in a layer and you're starting to fill up this bowl, so it comes on the inside up to about here, you're going to want to mix up layers of the UltraCal 30. And you'll pour in one layer, maybe an inch thick, then you'll add to that another layer, another layer, another layer till you're up to about this much depth on the pour, and that's going to get you ready to also add to that. You'll find in your kit. I'm trying to find out what I did with it. A piece of burlap. Oh, here it is. So you've got a piece of burlap, and I threw one of these in the kit. What this does, this works kind of like the same concept as putting a little bit of gauze or a little bit of cotton ball under nose putty. Is it gives something for the material to kind of adhere to. So after you've done your first 2 or 3 layers of pouring it into your mold, and then you'll put in, and you can cut this up into smaller pieces, doesn't really make any difference. It just kind of helps pull the material together. So you're going to put this in there, and then you're going to finish pouring the UltraCal 30 into the mold. So that covers those materials, and I think I threw in here too a couple pieces of cotton. Now, one of the designs that are in here, and it shows you these cotton balls actually kind of roll out. I don't know if you knew that. I didn't know that really until recently either. But they kind of roll. They roll out into flat pieces. And what one of the people did is, before putting on the plaster bandage, and I thought it probably made sense, is they took some of this and they matted it into the wet alginate before they put on the plaster bandage. And what that does, that again just kind of gives a little more firmness to that alginate before you put it on. So you have some cotton balls in there. These are also good, like I say, for just generally having around to clean up or fill things up. You could also use these to plug the nose hole first and then put the nose putty in. Remember, when you're plugging the nose hole too, you don't want to have a whole bunch sticking out of the front or going up in the nose so far that it distorts it, because remember, that's going to be, when you pour it, that's going to be those are going to be sticking out. So anyway, this is all the stuff that's in here for this. And then what happens is you wait. Once you've got that bowl now created with your mold inside of it, you have to wait overnight. I would say overnight, at least 5 or 6 hours. Then you take it out and you break away easily the edges around the plaster and the alginate, and you bring out your face, which will look something like this. This one has already had, you can see it's got a bunch of residue on here of clay from the last time that it was used, and that will clean off easily if we want to with mineral spirits or something like this. Hopefully yours will. So that's why this one's kind of distorted. It's actually a pretty good mold, but we didn't get the clay cleaned off of it. So you have the clay in your kit also. There's not very much of it because we didn't have much in the cabinet. In case you need to get more, it's oil-based clay. And one of the things about oil-based clay is you can pull it off and you can roll it up and use it again forever and ever and ever and not have to worry about it. So you're going to take, and this is why, so this is going to be this is ending the first part of the pour, is you've got your life cast now. And so what you're going to do is, with that, is you're going to take your clay, and you're going to use it to mold a feature on the face. So it's a feature that fits yours. Using the techniques that are pointed out, and that's using the oil-based clay. And the other thing is that you're going to want to use again just a little bit of oil to help smooth that out, and then go back and blot it up when you're done. So that's the first part of the process. Also in there, you're going to find I put in a little wire holder in there. And what I suggest you do is, when this is still wet and we're looking at the back side, you put this in, push it into the UltraCal 30, and it gives you a hanger. That's the idea, is you've got something that's going to keep your mask. You can hang it on the wall, you can keep it someplace safe. Otherwise they tend to knock them around, they're going to get chipped up. So I find that's what that little piece of bent wire is in there. I think I made some of them out of hairpins in the cabinet, and some of them are made out of coat hangers, but they all are there for the same reason. Here in the back of this too, you'll see a little bit of the burlap that's sticking out of it. So it gives you an idea for what you're going to come up with when you come out of the mold. That's what you're going to have. Now your next step, so you've got this done, so your next step is going to be building a feature on this. And if it's the nose, whatever feature you decide that you're going to do, how complete it wants to be and how detailed you want is up to you. But you're going to be using the clay to build up the features, and then you're going to take and end up by building up the features and doing a reverse casting. This one is probably one of the most complicated ones a student ever did, with building up so they could do a monkey face on it, and really did a lot of sculpting and a lot of work. So what you do, this was all built up with clay first, and then you build up around the area that you're going to want to cast. So you've made the feature. Let's say for our purposes right now, it is the nose. So what we're going to do with that nose is we are going to build around it a dam. Again, what we did with the bowl was similar to what we're going to do now, is we're going to look for something that can cover. See, I have a piece here. So what I had, and I can't see it right now. Oh, here it is. It's not easy working in my study with all of these materials, trying to find room to spread them out. So let's say that now I have built up this feature on the face, the nose, and I am going to want to make a mold now. That's what I'm going to make my prosthetic out of. So we're going to take something that's going to fit around that area. Here I just have a coffee cup that I cut down to fit fairly tightly around the area that I'm going to cast on the face. So you'll see that you can see air around the edges on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my clay and I'm going to fill around the edges. Once I've set this for where I want it, I'm going to fill around the edge of the cup or whatever the material is. You may have to use something bigger, deciding on the size of the prosthetic that you're making. I'm going to fill it in with clay so it doesn't leak, or here again you can use your nose putty. And once I have that, then I'm going to take the inside of this mold, and I'm going to again, and you may want to do this first before you put this on, is you want to have something that's going to keep your cement, because you're going to do another layer now of the UltraCal 30. You're going to want to Vaseline the area underneath real well, because you're going to not want, you don't want, and they have materials that are made specially for this. But if you're good with the Vaseline and putting it on, you shouldn't get any separation problems. So what you're going to do is you got your nose, and you've covered it, or the area that you're doing, with Vaseline, because you're going to pour some more UltraCal 30 to make now another reverse mold. So we've got something like this, And then we're going to take that and we're going to fill that slowly but surely, once it's sealed, with UltraCal 30. And then we're going to do the same process. It's going to have to dry. And then you're going to take it off. It may take a little bit of wiggling, working around the edge to get the mold off. You're going to take it off, and then here you are going to have your reverse mold, which will come out looking something like this. Let me see if I can get it up here where you can see it. So it's the reverse. You can see it's the nose shape from the inside, and then that is what you're working from to make your prosthetic. So you have this. It's a reverse. You're going to take this layer by layer with your latex. Go slow. I mean, a layer at the end. It's best to get a brush. Remember, a brush is probably going to get screwed by using it for latex. So it's something we want to get rid of. But you're going to want to take and fill the inside layer by layer. You're going to want to do a layer and dry it. Then you're going to want to do another layer and dry it, and a layer and dry it until you're 4 or 5 or 6 layers thick. And always letting it be thinner on the outside edges, because that's the part where it's going to meet the face when you put it on, and you want that edge to be as clean and as thin as possible. And you'll see that on this mold here, how thin it is on the edges. Whoops, where am I? You'll see how thin the edges are where it meets the face, because you want to keep that as indistinguishable as possible when you get the final makeup on. So there you go. Those are the steps that you're going to go through. I have some videos I'm going to be attaching to this, some additional videos. Check your materials. Don't wait too long to do this initial part, because if you have a problem with materials, you may have to replace it. You can get at any hobby shop. You can get more plaster. You can get plaster of Paris if you need it. Plaster of Paris, like I say, is just a lesser, not as solid a version as what we're using. You should have, if you time it out right, you should have plenty of materials for both the UltraCal 30 and the alginate, which are the most everything else you can find a way to punt. And you got plaster bandage, and you should have plenty by having a roll of plaster bandage to do the support. You should have the UltraCal 30. It tends to be really thin when you're watering. It tends to be really watery, so you end up adding more UltraCal 30 than you think you're probably going to need, but you should have plenty in the bag that I gave you. If for some reason you have trouble finding additional materials or something, maybe we can work out a way to sneak over to the college and get you some more. But I'm hoping that what you've got in your kit is going to work. And of course, you have in here, this is your latex that you're going to build that prosthetic from. And I put in there quite a bit. It doesn't look like much, but you're only going to be doing, like I say, 4 or 5 layers inside of the mold itself. So those are all the things there. There are a couple of other things that came up, which were sealing the mask. This one here, I think, would have not had the problems with the clay sticking to it as much if it had been sealed somehow. So you can use a clear acrylic spray. You also can find stuff at the hobby shop called Hodgepodge, and it just kind of it's kind of an acrylic cover, and it just kind of protect the face of the mold without causing a whole bunch of damage when you pull it apart. So those are the basics. I know this is really a tough project without the classroom, without the chair, without having all of the mixing materials and the bowls and stuff. And that's why I really encourage you, first of all, you go through this prosthetic handout. Has a list by list of materials on it that are important to have. And it starts off with equipment, and then it goes through with pictures step by step of the process that we just talked through. So really be sure that you go through this, you read it in detail, and then it goes on after you do the face casting to making a prosthetic nose with latex. And so you've got everything you need in here. And like I say, it's just being sure. It's not an easy project, and that's why we do it in the classroom. We usually do a couple of demonstrations first before we actually cast, the first one. And in class, when we do it, it usually takes a bit of time. So uh, we would usually do in class, we would do two at a time, and after 3 or 4 class sessions, we'd get through pretty much everybody. Other thing I wanted to point out is that I put in your packet when you got it too is their main class schedule. But attached to that is I broke down again. It's got in here all of your project work for your morgue, for your final paper, and your final project. So you need to be looking that over because all of that's what all of this is going to culminate in. This that you've made a prosthetic, it goes into a makeup that you've designed. It's going to incorporate that, and there are other requirements that you need to do for that also. So I think that will do it for today. That's just 31 minutes, and then I'm going to post another video, which will be on Rick Baker, which will be the last of the makeup artists. That will be starting off with Lon Chaney, Jack Pierce. We did Dick Smith last week, and Rick Baker, who kind of makes a transition into more contemporary artists. And then the week probably after that, we'll have a quiz on the various makeup artists and a general quiz just on materials and techniques that we've talked about during the semester that I think you should be familiar with. And that way we won't try to have a final quiz. We'll just work everything into that, get that done early so you have just your projects and your paper at the end of the semester along with your work. Okay, talk to you soon. I'll be back in a bit with a Rick Baker, probably about 20 minutes, Rick Baker bio background lecture. All right, thanks. And everybody's doing great. I really appreciate the fact that you're getting this work done under such unusual and difficult circumstances. So thanks a lot. See you.